Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZaAli. Today is Monday, June 27, 2022. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am doing very well. Thank you. I wanted to talk today. My subject today is going to be the anointed ones. I didn't get any questions yesterday for my Ask Me Anything segment on my membership channel. So what I'm going to do when that happens is just, and I may have even said this last week, I'll still do the segment. I'll just pose a question or questions and then answer them. And most specifically, I'll be focusing on current events like last week when I did the, what's with the extreme weather. But this week, instead of doing that, I decided to put together a presentation that I'm not going to do like a regular presentation. This is just really going to be kind of a soul conversation based around the subject, the anointed ones, which is a phrase that I've been dwelling on as well as meditating on as of late. So I've put together a body of information delving deep into this subject, but opposed to doing a presentation, we're just going to have a meeting of the minds. The minds I'm going to share with you, the reading references, John Randolph Price, Yogi Ramacharaka, Yogananda, the Kabbalion, as well as an article online, as well as some notes that I've written about things specifically that I want to talk about. Building on this subject, plus your mind, in addition to your energy and your attention. This is going to be a 90-minute video, and I'm thinking about doing an ongoing segment on my membership channel based around this topic, the anointed ones, specifically speaking to the upper echelons of consciousness. And when I say that, it's not intended to sound haughty or arrogant, but as we're going to talk about today, as I've been talking about this whole concept of being wired for well-being, well, if that's the case, then there are levels of living, there's levels of experiencing consciousness, there's levels of awareness. And obviously, the higher you go, the more keen you are to deal in the upper echelons of consciousness. So hopefully this conversation is going to inspire that, as well as all of the content that I've been posting. This is also the type of energy and focus of my upcoming events in LA, Atlanta, and Brooklyn. LA is confirmed for August the 20th. If you want to get ticket information, the link's going to be in the description. You can also go to my website, ZaZaAli.com. You can email me, but the link's going to be in the description. And that's going to be, the subject is going to be Illuminati 2.0. And there's a couple of different subjects within that that I'm going to talk about briefly here later in a little bit. But, with the goal of speaking to the God within you, within all of us, and those of us specifically that have been prepared for this moment in time. As always, you can access this full 90-minute video as well as all exclusive ZaZaAli content by joining my membership channel for $22.22 per month. That's where most of my content will be located moving forward. This video, the full 90-minute video, will also be available for purchase on demand. See the link in the description to access this and other on-demand content. I'm also excited to announce my new book, Ancient People, a Social Studies and History textbook. I will be taking pre-orders for that soon, possibly late July or early August. And just as a reminder, I've written 4 metaphysics workbooks, 2 books, The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs and Plagues of Dysfunction, and my course on writers and self-publishing is still in the works. Don't think I've forgotten, because I still get emails about it. I'll keep you guys posted on that as well. Okay, so this topic, the anointed ones. First, let me just let you guys know what the inspiration was for this. I mentioned last week that I was having a conversation with my son, and I told him, this is one of those moments when you teach yourself, because I said this to him, and then after I said it, I thought about it for 2 or 3 days afterwards, and the significance of the statement. I said, as a child, it's all about how the world treats you. And then once you become an adult, it becomes about how you treat everyone else and how you treat the world. And one of the things that, I know for sure, just in living this life and kind of observing human beings, is that a lot, dare I say many, dare I say most, people are still operating from that childlike capacity in terms of everything being about how the world treats them, opposed to how they treat the world and everyone else, right? And so we have generations of adults that have never been properly treated. I'm going to say that again. We have generations of adults that have never been properly treated, properly loved, properly communicated with, properly supported, right? This is what gives birth, to narcissists and serial killers and, unprovoked anger or provoked anger, and for living in the lower nature. So we have these generations of adults that are not conscientious about how they're treating the world. And it doesn't matter if you've been abandoned or if you've been abused or if you have been forsaken by your family. If you were born with a serious health problem, poverty, once you become an adult, even in lieu of all of those things, still, regardless of your race, regardless of your sexuality, regardless of how difficult your upbringing was, how unavailable your parents were, how rich your parents were, it doesn't matter. You become responsible and accountable, and your primary vibration in operating in the world is supposed to be from the vantage point of how you treat everyone else. So when I talk about the anointed ones, they intrinsically know this. This is not really something that has to be taught. It can be taught, but we've had, all these different spiritual and religious concepts trying to get to the root of humanity. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you, right? This is a primary staple in global culture, and yet it's so rarely practiced in a significant way. But you have to have culture in order to operate and vibrate like that in the world. Again, conscientiously considering how you treat everyone else and how you treat the world. So like I said, the anointed ones intrinsically know this, even if they struggle with it. This is not about perfection. Even if they struggle with this, they intrinsically know it. And so we talk a lot about, your carbon footprint in terms of global warming, all that stuff, all those falsities and false narratives. But we talk about carbon footprints. And if I, had a basic conversation with most people, they could probably tell me, at least a little bit about it, right? Knowing that it has something to do with the weather or with the planet or with, global warming. But what about the human footprint? I watched a video. There's a video that's trending of a Black man on a podcast. And he's saying, basically, I don't want to date women with children. And he's very emphatic about it. And, before he gets into his list of things, reasons why he doesn't want to date women with children, a gay white man, superimposes himself in the video and then basically starts going off for 2 minutes about how he's so sick and tired of hearing, Black men talk about how they don't want to date women with children. Or maybe it wasn't even just Black men, race wasn't referenced. But, he went on this kind of rant and he actually was making some great points. But there's two things to that. There is this new false narrative now that, you know, Black men can't be trusted to protect Black women or to stand up for Black women, etc. And now we have gay men coming in to be the heroes. And I'm starting to see this a lot. And without, you know, getting into a whole LGBTQ narrative or conversation, it's just interesting to see this play out now here in this time frame where we're moving back into the balance and the harmony of the male-female dichotomy. This is why, you know, all hell is breaking loose in terms of the gender wars right now. Because everything that's operating within the lower nature of humanity is exasperating the lower nature of this satanic system, this beast, which is a very, very, very appropriate term. So all negative, low vibrational energy, frequencies, intentions, thoughts, seen and unseen, programmed and unprogrammed, online and offline, are feeding this system. So this is when we talk about spiritual warfare, you know, everybody, the planning, the emergency planning, right? The you know, being able to physically protect your home, you know, financial well-being, making sure that you've covered all of your bases. All of those things are very important. But in spiritual warfare, the primary emergency and urgency focus is actually you. So my son and I started out talking about the anointed ones. Actually, we were having the child versus adult conversation. So I said, what is your human footprint, right? And then I started talking about the guy not wanting to date with children. You know, bro, your human footprint is extremely low and lacking. Because why would you or any man sit down and send out a frequency over the planet and into the ethers with such a low vibrational, self-sabotaging perspective? That's an automatic disrespect of children in general. If that's your preference, then let that be your preference. But why would you want to send that frequency out into the universe with all of the trials and tribulations that these young people are dealing with right now? So imagine a 13 or a 14 or a 15-year-old young boy or young girl that's vibrating hurt and pain because they've been neglected or abandoned by their fathers. And children naturally blame the parent that's there. So their mothers are probably already catching hell. And then you turn around and exasperate, you know, the womb. And you're doing this on a, you know, if this video ends up on the Shade Room, or this video ends up on Hollywood Unlocked, or this video ends up on one of these more popular social media pages, now the frequency is rippling out into the universe. So again, what's your human footprint look like? What does your earthly footprint look like? Oh, ye original man and woman. It's not good enough just to talk about, it's not good enough anymore just to talk about what our ancestors did. Why don't we start talking about what we're doing now, the collective consciousness? Because the earth is in trouble. And I'm going to say that recognizing that the recyclical nature of how this planet operates, do I ever think that they will be completely successful in their endeavors? No. Do I think they're going to be allowed to take this to the brink before there's some sort of intervention, which, by the way, can only be sparked and manifested based on the state of human consciousness and awareness, and that being connected to the energy and the resonance and the frequency of the planet? We're not even asking for intervention. Well, not we're, y'all. And when I say y'all, I'm not talking to the anointed ones. Let's just say it that way. So we have a planet now that is in extreme conflict, that's crying out for help, that's crying out for love. What is the original indigenous African darker people of the planet, what is our earthly footprint? What is our position on chemtrails and genetically modified food and fluoridated water and the Jim Jones juice? Water shortages, intentionally made droughts, the aluminum and the barium and the strontium and the metal particulates that is in the water and in the food and in the air. And then sometimes, like, that's a macrocosm, but then there's sometimes smaller things like littering. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't care about your home, your planet enough to not litter. You don't care about your communities enough to not beautify them and not be invested in them. In the Kabbalion, on page 128, it says the strong men and women of the world invariably manifest the masculine principle of will, and their strength depends materially upon this fact. Instead of living upon the impressions made upon their minds by others, they dominate their own minds by their will, obtaining the kind of mental images desired, and moreover, dominate the minds of others likewise in the same manner. Look at the strong people, how they manage to implant their seed thoughts in the minds of the masses of the people, thus causing the latter to think thoughts in accordance with the desires and wills of the strong individuals. This is why the masses of people are such sheep-like creatures, never originating an idea of their own, nor using their own powers of mental activity. So we referenced the carbon footprint, we referenced the human footprint, we referenced the earthly footprint. What about your mental and spiritual footprint? Just like I say, I wrote in my Keys to Womanhood workbook, the woman has two wombs. Actually, let me read that to you guys because it's relative. The woman has been blessed with the honor of two wombs, both portals for the universe to express itself in the physical realm. Her physical womb is the vessel through which God manifests in the flesh. Her mental womb is the vessel through which God manifests its wisdom. She is creative, not created. So again, a mental footprint, projecting, visualizing, imaginating, being intentional in your thinking, being intentional with your mind, with conditioning your mind, being internally aware. Spiritual footprint. Are you seeking to be in harmony with nature? Are you seeking some sort of spiritual alignment in whatever your particular religion or preferred method of doing so? I fell in love with God through history initially. So history, the Bible says in my Father's house there are many mansions. For me, history was one of the doors to elevating my consciousness, to being in alignment with the Creator. Then at a certain point, it was science. Then at a certain point, it was research. Then at a certain point, it was yoga. Then at a certain point, it was working with people individually and seeing that transmutation of energy. So it is just like God, just like creation, just like universal consciousness, always evolving, always expanding. And we are not moving forward because we're not evolving and we're not expanding. Most people are living very mediocre and substandard existences. And it's making the weight, the vibrational countenance and the weight of it all too much for the planet in terms of how we're aligned in the ethers. That's why when I say become light in your affairs, right? So that the lightness can be in alignment and reflect the light, the light and the wisdom of truth, which is God. There's an article on a website. I printed the article out, but it cut the head off, so I can't tell you what the website is. I'll post this in the membership channel, but it's about the human electromagnetic field. It is of the utmost importance to understand that the layering effect of the human energy field, that is the physical, etheric, emotional, mental, astral, and upper spiritual plane bodies, is not a layering effect at all. It is a more expansive version of ourselves, which carries inside it the more limited forms. There is a vertical flow of energy which pulsates up and down the field in the spinal column. This etheric channel passes from the root of the cord in the sacrum along the whole length of the spinal column into the medulla oblongata and the brain. This canal is the vehicle for the creative life force. This energy extends above the head and below the root chakra in the coccyx area. Chakras are swirling cone-shaped vortexes interpenetrating this field. They have open ends of which extend to the edge of each layer of the energy field they are located in. Each of these open ends in each chakra are the seals that are spoken about in esoteric texts. Each chakra or vortex is associated with a layer or body of the human electromagnetic field. The first body, which is the etheric, parentheses, physical and etheric body, is, in parentheses, I meant to say, is associated with the first or root chakra. The second body is the emotional body, which contains all preceding bodies, is associated with the second or sacral chakra, chakra, and so on. There are 7 chakras associated directly with the physical body. The location of the seven chakras correspond to the major nerve plexuses of the physical body in the area where the chakra resides. They also correspond to the major endocrine glands. And one of the things I've learned through my research in this Jim Jones juice and the stuff that I'm going to present to you guys in part 2 and 3 of The Kingdom Within is that the endocrine system is a direct point of attack. And you know, the pineal gland is located in the endocrine system. But the thing about this article that really got me, let me take a drink of some water because I'm doing a lot of talking. The thing in this article that got me, in the next paragraph, I'm just going to read this one sentence. It says the frontal aspect of each chakra is related to a being's feelings and the rear to his will. Now, if you could see the picture on this article, there is an image of the outline of a man's body, and then it's showing red, beaming all the different colors of the chakras, beaming from the front part of the body, and then beaming from the back part of the body, right? And that's to highlight this quote: the frontal aspect of each chakra is related to a being's feelings and the rear to his will. And so I started thinking about that. And because in, the science of sex, when I talked about in terms of how we view sexuality and our lack of spiritual understanding of sexuality, that we lack the ability to have indulgence with discipline, right? That's balance. So the indulgence is the related to the feelings, and then the discipline is related to the will. The same thing goes with the masculine and feminine attributes. The feminine would be the more feelings, and then the masculine would be more relative to the will. That's not saying man and woman. That's talking about masculine and feminine attributes that men and women have. But most men and women in today's society have very imbalanced, perverted aspects of masculinity, perverted and imbalanced and toxic